Welcome to the POMcast with Steve Willis, your independent, unbiased, and unbought source for Ole Miss athletics. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Welcome to the POMcast. I am your host, Stephen Willis. Hope you are having a fantastic day. I know that I am as well. We're house hunting for our palatial Central Florida estate, and it's really fun to do that. Certain things you want, and we're looking for something that we can pay cash for, and it's a really fun time in our lives, which after the last year, honestly, we deserve, and it's just terrific. So yeah, we should be in the Central Florida palatial mansion, palatial studios in the next month or two. It's going to be a lot of fun. We're looking at fully furnished houses. Now, whenever we get down there, Positively Ole Miss is also going to branch out a little bit and kind of do the vacation thing, do the videos of all the attractions around Orlando and, you know, the theme parks and what to do and things to see. That should be a lot of fun, honestly. But that's something we've always dreamed of doing, and we're going to do it. Of course, the POMcast and Positively Ole Miss is going to be a large part of it. We are going to cover it in a way and show you things that you just can't get in coverage of Ole Miss right now. It's going to be like going from Wayne's World to the SEC network. That's going to be the jump. It's going to be pretty terrific. So stick around for that. We're still a few months away from it. We have to get the palatial Central Florida studios first, but after we get that, we'll hook up all the equipment and we will start moving over to video. We did a preview the other day of the wireframe. That will be pretty cool. A lot of wood grain, a lot of brick. It's going to be fun. Anyway, you can follow us at the Stephen Willis or at Ole Positively. You can reach us on Facebook at facebook.com/POMcast or join our Facebook group at Positively Ole Miss. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel at Positively Ole Miss. Hit the bell for notifications. You'll know when we're going live in the future. And of course, you can join us on Twitch at Positively Ole Miss, all one word. But that is available for your video usage. You can subscribe now, and then whenever we go to video, all of a sudden you'll get notifications and you won't miss it in case for some reason you forget about it. Now, if audio is your thing, you can listen on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, TuneIn Radio, SoundCloud, iHeartRadio, Pandora, and we're trying to get on Audible at the moment. So that's where we stand at the moment. It's going to be a lot of fun. We're doing a lot of stuff. Now, there will be some service interruptions while we're moving. There could be a week off while we're getting the internet cut on and everything down there and getting set up. So be aware of that. But we're going to start testing. We're going to start doing. And, you know, we're going to test the stream and everything before we unveil the wireframe. So we're going to keep that a surprise to pretty much the last second. But yeah, I've got a pretty good idea of what it's going to look like. So it's going to be a lot of fun. All right, yesterday we talked about Matt Corral and his 6 interceptions, his 7 total turnovers. And Lane Kiffin also, you know, talked about it and said Matt had a bad Saturday, and Lane's advice to him is embrace the suck and get better. And the important thing is to remember for Ole Miss fans, I know I said this yesterday, I'm going to say it again because it needs to be said quite often, because cynical people are trying to do cynical things because that's just the way they are. But in 1968 versus Tennessee, Archie Manning threw 6 interceptions. The next year was the Mule game, the Archie Who game, the Jackson Massacre. Tennessee ranked in the top 5, coming to Jackson, and Archie Manning just shredded them. You could not have that game without the year before. None of those factors would have been in place, and none of those dominoes would have been in place without 1968 and 6 interceptions. It's important to remember that. This is not something where you get a data point and you stretch it all the way to the end like we talk. This is just a self-contained data point. And then after it's all over, you can find trends maybe. But it's a self-controlled data point. Remember 2 weeks ago, this was the worst defense in the history of college football. Well, last week they gave up 350 yards. Played very well. Gave up 20 points, I think. And really only one explosive play. And that was the Trayvon Burks, 50-yard run. Which, reception, 50-yard reception. Which, after a tackle, would have dropped it down probably under 300 yards of total offense. It's impressive that you can't take that away from the defense. So that goes to show this is self-contained, and 1 week does not necessarily mean anything to the next week, and then the current week isn't going to go off what happened the previous week. It's just not. It's going to basically be a growing experience for Matt Corral. Either he is going to come through this like Archie Manning and you can have things in the future, or he's going to wilt, and we're going to see JRP in a game or two. Those are the two options. There's not really any other way to bounce back from this. Either you attack the mental part of throwing 6 interceptions and get better, or you dwell on it and end up losing your job. Those are the options. Because Lane Kiffin talked about it yesterday. I don't think that should be glossed over. Stephen Willis, POMcast. Stick around.
Only 10% of us get enough daily exercise.
And that number is dropping.
Nearly 30% of us are overweight or obese.
We spend 6 hours a day in front of a screen.
As a result, we now have a shorter life expectancy than our parents.
But give us the right start in sports, and we'll never stop.
Learn how at active4life.ca.
Hey, this is Stephen Willis from Positively Ole Miss. We're almost done with this break. We'll be back with good information quite soon.
The military has been in every generation of my family, and so has VA. It wasn't easy for my dad after Vietnam, but VA helped him and my mom get the home they'd always wanted. My grandpa's been coming to VA since World War II. They even helped him lay to rest one of his battle buddies from Normandy. And me, I followed in their footsteps and served with pride. And now that I'm out of the military, the GI Bill's helping me with school. Every generation of my family has served, and VA has served us all.
POMcast, Stephen Willis, right here on Positively Ole Miss. Thank you very much for joining me on this fine morning. we are going to do our best to keep you entertained. And if nothing else, we can just be white noise in the background. Subscribe to the podcast, and if you do the audio thing, it's 30 minutes. It's a perfect time for a run. It's perfect time for a walk. Right there for you. Now, we have Auburn this weekend at 11 a.m., Vaught-Hemingway Stadium, Oxford, Mississippi, SEC Network, October 24th. And the line has gone from Auburn being favored by 6 to Auburn being favored by 3. Now, some books, it got down to negative, got down to 2.5, but it went back up to 3. And right now, Bo Nix is ranked 11th through 14th in such categories as pass efficiencies, completion percentage, touchdowns per pass attempts. And he is really just a couple of grown man plays by Seth Williams, which could happen again this weekend. I'm not saying it won't, from losing to Kentucky. And as we know, Bo Nix also spiked it backwards, and somehow, they didn't rule a backwards pass, a fumble. Arkansas didn't recover. They could be 0-4 right now is the point. They could be 0-4. And, this feels like Gene Chizik in 2012. That's what this game feels like. It feels like the death throes. This feels like the end. Especially of Gus Malzahn. That's what I'm talking about. And I am more than tempted to take Ole Miss straight up. This is what you need to know. Auburn's defensive coordinator does not handle play volume well. Any chance the play volume goes up, their lack of substituting results in a second half of going up and down the field on them. Secondly, they are a man team. If they try to replicate what Arkansas did last week, it's going to be problems because it's going to be learning something new. Now, everybody can play a little bit of zone coverage, but it's more than likely they're going to try in two-manas. We're still going to have to run them out of it. And like I've said over and over and over again, this is a running team. Our best room is the running backs room. We are currently second in the SEC in rushing, playing an all-conference schedule. We have a year of being drilled on the zone offense from Rich Rod. The offensive line learned all his dirty tricks. This running game is a variation of that. Now, there's probably some gap scheme stuff, and there's different things you can do on the offensive line, but the base is outside zone, inside zone, split zone. That's the basis of this running game. And, way back in the 2000s in Another Life, like whenever we were having Monty Kiffin come in to talk defense, we also had Alex Gibbs, I think that was his name, Alex Gibbs come in to teach the zone blocking scheme, the zone running game, to lecture for a couple of days, and I had to video the whole thing, so I got to sit in every meeting with them discussing the run game. Every meeting with having to discuss defense at different levels. I mean, that's like my high-end education when it comes to football is stuff like that. Stuff that everybody else doesn't get to see. Everybody else doesn't get to do. It was really cool. And I'm the person that is a football nerd. I really am. So it was the most fun. I mean, we're talking 5 days where everything was filmed. We would have like 40 tapes, because back then it was tape. 40 tapes on Monty Kiffin or Alex Gibbs or whoever. And that's how you learn about football. And that's how you learn what worked and what didn't. It was like a PhD course in the game of football. And I understand that everybody doesn't have access to that. I understand that. I get that. But it's my job to try and be an access point for that for you. This is all free. My job is to tell you what I know. It's not necessarily to tell you what's happening. It's my perspective on what's happening. And once we move on to video and do all that thing, we're going to have interviews from people. We're going to expand that. I'm like I told you, once we get into the Palatial Central Florida studios, I'm going to leave my job, and this will be a full-time thing. I have the ability to do that. Unfortunately, you're stuck with me that it's me, but I have the ability to do that. So I'm going to do that because this is fun to me. Those days of, like I said, sitting around Alex Gibbs or Monty Kiffin and just videoing, having an offense and defense discussion, I mean, it's going to benefit you guys. But that gets back to the point where the running game is the strength of this team. The running back room was always going to be the strength of this team. And even when Matt Corral was making headlines in the first 3 weeks, which is more than possible he gets back to. Everybody has a bad day. Let him have a bad day, come back and bounce back, and he gets to prove whether or not he can do it. But even before then, it was the run game. They were running sometimes at a 2-to-1 clip. So Jerry and Ely and Snoop Connor, they have an avenue. And you also see the substitution patterns expanding. Jaden Jackson got on the field a good bit against Arkansas. He's playing slot, by the way, which I did not expect, but I mean, that's where he is at the moment. Now, let's remember that when it comes to receiver weapon, the slot is the receiver weapon in this offense. The tight end is another one. But on outside, it's big physical guys. If you're not big and physical, you're not going to play outside in this offense. And I know what you're saying. You're thinking about, well, Braylon Sanders is playing. And yeah, it's because we haven't recruited at a level to fit this offense. Next year, I mean, the big boys are going to be here. That could be Braylon Brown next year. Next year's wide receiver could be Braylon Brown and Jonathan Mingo as a sophomore and a freshman. I don't think Elijah Moore is going to come back, but he can and have another junior year and then go pro if he wants to. But that's available as well to go along with those running backs. So this offense is nothing but going forward. It's a rocket ship to the moon. It's taking off. Now, the issues they have to have are the little things. Where your eyes are, where your feet are. I mean, to protect against what Arkansas did, you got to be patient. You got to mind those little things. And if you nail those little things, you'll just dink them and dunk them all the way down the field and score a touchdown. Or in the second half, in 12 personnel, you just dink them, dunk them, run the football. Because that is the kryptonite to their system. That's the key. They want you to get impatient. But if you just run the ball and hit your dinks and dunks, you're going to go straight down the field on that defense. And we did in the second half. Scored 21 points in the half. Had the ball back with 3 minutes to go with a chance to win the game. After getting stopped inside the one twice and 7 turnovers. That's how you can look at this game and not be overly critical. It just took the worst quarterbacking performance in the history of the school for Arkansas to beat us. If he's even average, we win the game. It was a mistake. It was a bad day. It happens. I think people were counting on it not happening, so they'd be 2-2 right now going into Auburn. But when we hit segment 3 and start breaking down this game, I was more worried about Arkansas than I am Auburn. Now, Tank Bigsby is a heck of a running back. Seth Williams is a man. But Bo Nix has just regressed. We all joked last year that we would take John Rice Plumlee over Bo Nix, but that's looking accurate at the moment. Yeah, it's looking the way it is. Anyway, come on back. We're going to talk about the Auburn game right here on the POMcast. I'm Stephen Willis. Thanks for listening.
You want to answer that, don't you? I bet it's just killing you seeing the soft glow just inches away. Someone wants to tell you something or ask you something. Oh, come on, answer it already! Just so we're clear, that wasn't my fault. Next time, ignore your inner voice. Don't text and drive. A message from Florida's trusted choice independent insurance agents.
Hey, this is Stephen Willis. I just want you to stick around a little longer. We're going to get back to the podcast right after these messages.
Tonight, nearly 40,000 veterans across the country are homeless. These men and women have pledged to serve our nation, and now we must serve them. Landlords across the country have helped make significant progress in reducing veteran homelessness by making housing available, but there is more that we can do to bring our veterans home. Visit www.va.gov/homeless to see how you can get involved. And if you are a veteran and you are experiencing homelessness, please call 877-4AID-VET. Thank you.
The POMcast, Stephen Willis, right here on Positively Ole Miss. Thanks for joining us. It's always a good way to start your day with a little POMcast action to talk about Ole Miss football. We try to keep it light. We try to tell you how it is. But we always are going to show hope because we're about building a program. We're not about winning one game. We're not about winning one recruiting class. We're about building for the future. It's taking the program up. And it desperately needs it right now. And that's why we're doing this. So thank you very much for listening. Now, when you talk Auburn, you can't help but talk about Bo Nix. Well, let's not talk about Bo Nix. Not yet. What about Seth Williams? Well, he had a couple of grown man touchdowns against Kentucky. And if not for him, they'd have probably lost that game. If not for the backward pass, they'd have lost against Arkansas. So they're struggling. What about Tank Bigsby? He's a good running back. He breaks a lot of tackles. He runs really hard. He could be somebody to look at in the future. But I am more concerned about talking about offensive line play at Auburn. As you know, or maybe you didn't, Auburn lost all 5 starters off of the offensive line last year. Now, we have no spring practice thanks to COVID, no fall camp, and it's causing units to not gel as quickly as we see on defense at Ole Miss at the moment. I mean, they gave up half as many yards against Arkansas as they gave up against Alabama. Literally half. So, I think one of these games, the offensive line is going to click. Because when it comes to the offense, him turning it over, Gus Malzahn, I want to say him, turning it over to Chad Morris, and Chad Morris running more of a passing spread. It's obviously for Bo Nix. There's going to be a slow growth in this. No spring, no fall camp, 40 hours less video, just like we always talk about everything. So within that offense, here's the problem that Auburn has. The offense is going to take a little bit of time to gel as it is, just as a whole, because they're going through, as a team, all the COVID stuff. Now, from there, the offensive line, after the fact, has to gel as well. We're talking about different blocking techniques, different pass blocking, different everything, and you have to do it as a unit, as a group of 5. Mississippi State's offensive line is learning all about this right now. Now, at a lesser degree, you have Auburn's offensive line, because even last year with Bo Nix, they were a running system. They were running Gus Malzahn's stuff, which means it was blocked a certain way. Plays were run a certain way. Now, when Chad Morris comes in, the blocking changes. Everything is a little bit different. The terminology is different. So the offense is sputtering. I mean, that is normal. People are going to try to cover this business as usual because they don't want to talk about the stuff related to COVID, not just COVID. They don't want to talk about anything related to COVID. But no spring practice, no fall camp, 40 hours less video. That means personnel probably isn't right. It's up to him to basically self-evaluate correctly to fix these problems quickly. You'll see that it took Navy about a game and a half to correct defensively. Of course, they already had their defensive coordinator. Their system was already in place. And you already had a baseline of his personnel. Now imagine that if it's all new, if relationships are still getting made. So you can't really cover this business as usual. You can't do that because it's not. It's not business as usual. And it could get better. It could get worse. There's several different directions this could go. Excuse me. And with that being the case, it takes away a predictability aspect of this game. That's the reason lines are so volatile at the moment in Vegas. Big jumps either way. It's just because you can't predict it. So it's going off of the emotional fan bet. I would not want to be a gambler this year because all the stuff you normally do, there's extra things that you have to take into account. So Tuesday, POMcast in the books. Thank you for listening. I'm your host, Stephen Willis. Tune in tomorrow. Take care.